She was a bright young teenager who fell hard for an older man.
He was charming and handsome.
She was crazy about him.
They look as they're in a perfect relationship.
But behind their smiling faces, trouble was brewing.
Nobody knew about this secret side of what she was doing.
He had been in trouble with the law.
She was going down a dangerous path.
And when she suddenly disappears, everyone fears the worst.
All the calls went unanswered.
Her family began to get alarmed.
They were taken aback.
Did she take off with her new boyfriend?
The family tell the detectives that she has become more rebellious.
He was living that type of lifestyle that would drive any parent crazy.
Or had her rebellious streak made her easy prey for a sadistic killer?
She would post these ads on the internet.
He had no regard for human life.
With a truth so shocking, no one saw it coming.
There was a second body and a second murder.
Somebody's gonna stand up and go, he's a serial killer. Do you want that on you?
She walked right into the lion's den without even realizing it.
I felt the devil. I honestly felt the devil.
Monday, February 11th, 2013. It's a frigid winter in St. Paul, one of Minnesota's twin cities.
The two main cities here are Minneapolis and St. Paul. They're basically sister cities.
Minneapolis is considered the big town, St. Paul, the smaller community.
We have 4 seasons, but the wintertime, it gets very cold.
It's not uncommon to have temperatures in the single digits or even below 0.
As the sun sets on St. Paul, those frigid temperatures have one young mother worried about her 18-year-old daughter, Brittany Clardy.
Brittany had gone out that morning to run some errands, but by nightfall, she still hadn't returned.
Brittany was living at home at the time with her family, her sister, her mom, her dad. They started to wonder, where's Brittany? What is she doing? And that's when the worries started.
She just isn't like her.
It's cold outside. It's getting dark. Immediately, your heart jumps and you think the worst case scenario, something bad happens.
Brittany's mother tries to reach her daughter by phone, but all of her calls go to voicemail.
She made calls. She received absolutely nothing. Not a word from Brittany.
Come on, baby. Pick up the phone.
She was frantically calling different people. Have you seen Brittany? Have you heard from Brittany?
Consumed with worry, Brittany's parents stay up late into the night, calling her phone over and over again, until they finally get an answer.
Brittany? Is that you?
Imagine calling, trying to reach her, and all of a sudden, the phone answers. Wow, I've got her on the phone. It's her.
But the excitement is short-lived.
Hello? Hello?
She could hear muffled sounds in the background, like something's going on.
There was just a ruffling in the background with nobody talking.
Then all of a sudden, the phone was disconnected.
What's she saying?
The line just went dead.
What do you mean the line went dead?
It just went dead.
Now the family is convinced that something is seriously wrong with Brittany.
Growing up in St. Paul, Brittany Clardy was raised by protective parents.
Brittany's parents made sure to keep her and her siblings away from the inner city violence that occurred, along with drugs.
This is a family that wanted the best for their children.
Shielded from many of the harsh realities her peers faced, Brittany was able to shine as a student.
Brittany was a very responsible young girl. Her parents and her family trusted her extensively. She had done well in school. She had done well at jobs.
She was very goal-oriented, looking into the future, already working, keeping herself busy.
She had a bright future ahead of her.
After graduating high school, Brittany's confidence in what she could accomplish only grew larger.
Brittany had plans to become a pharmacist.
She was applying to colleges and looking forward to starting a career.
It was around this time that Brittany started hanging out with a handsome young man from the neighborhood, Braxton Green.
She met Braxton in December of 2011, and then they ended up going on their first date on Christmas Eve.
Thanks for letting me steal you away from your family tonight.
They see me enough as it is.
Brittany and Braxton became serious very quickly. He was charming and handsome and swept her off her feet.
Every time he moved, every time he walked, every time he talked, it was Braxton, it's Braxton.
Before long, Braxton became Brittany's new priority.
Brittany floods her social media feeds with Braxton's picture, and they look as if they're in a perfect relationship.
All right, ready? Smile.
Brittany showed off, here's my boyfriend, here we are, had no qualms about it. It was her and Braxton.
Damn, we look good.
But there was one problem. Brittany's parents didn't approve of her new boyfriend.
Have you seen this?
Braxton was a 23-year-old man.
When they first met, Brittany was only 17 years old, and her parents didn't like the fact that she was hanging out with a grown man while she was underage.
Didn't matter to Brittany. She was in love with him. She was crazy about him. Her parents couldn't break that.
Now, Brittany is 18 years old, so she feels more free. I am not going to listen to you, Mom. I am an adult now.
This was the man of her dreams.
Head over heels is a good way to describe it.
But now, Brittany Clardy has vanished, and her parents are beginning to fear the worst after an alarming phone call.
When Brittany finally appeared to pick up the phone after several attempts to reach her, there was no voice, just some muffled noises, and then the phone disconnected.
Subsequent calls go straight to voicemail.
This made Brittany's family very, very concerned.
Brittany's parents decide to check in with her boyfriend, Braxton Green, to see if she's with him.
Hello?
Have you talked to Brittany?
You sound worried.
We are worried. We haven't spoken to her since this morning.
He told her, I have not seen her.
He said that he did have plans with Brittany for earlier that day, but Brittany never showed up.
Brittany's parents wait up all night, hoping she'll return their calls or show up on their doorstep.
I just don't understand.
They had given her the whole night to reach out, but Brittany had not reached out.
By morning, they decide to involve the authorities.
So I understand you're both here about your daughter.
When Brittany went missing, her family contacted the St. Paul Police Department.
She left home yesterday around 11:30.
That's right.
At first, police are reluctant to get involved.
They simply said that she was a runaway or that she would come back and not to worry.
The family, of course, is trying to convince them, hey, this is a very responsible young girl. We need to take this seriously.
And Brittany's parents also provide police with their first suspect.
The family did inform the police of Brittany's relationship with Braxton.
Their theory is Brittany's boyfriend may have something to do with this.
18-year-old Brittany Clardy was in the prime of her life and head over heels for her new boyfriend, Braxton Green.
Braxton, this 23-year-old man, sweeps her off her feet. Braxton is charming, good-looking, and handsome.
Brittany was madly in love with Braxton.
But now, After leaving her parents' home on a chilly morning in the winter of 2013, Brittany has disappeared without a trace.
When she left home, it was 11:30, and by 1 to 1:30, the phone calls had absolutely stopped. There was nothing else.
That is, I would say, a mother's worst nightmare. When your child says, I'm going out to run some errands, and then an hour passes, another hour passes. Next thing you're talking evening.
When she didn't appear at home, mother then called her in as missing.
Brittany's family tells investigators they already have suspicions about what may have happened to her.
They told them they strongly suspected her boyfriend, Braxton.
The family suggested that he may have something to do with her disappearance.
I never liked him. What don't you like about him?
They said Braxton was a bad influence and that he was leading Brittany in the wrong direction.
He had been in trouble with the law. He had a child by another relationship. Not the ideal person that they would want their daughter to date.
Brittany's parents are also concerned about the way Braxton treats their daughter.
Braxton demonstrated a controlling behavior. When Brittany did not respond to text messages or phone calls, he would become really angry.
He didn't have a full-time job. I mean, he was just always hanging out all the time. He would say, go buy me this, go get me that.
He's a bum, you know? And he's got her doing all this stuff she has no business doing.
Braxton liked to party, which Brittany also joined him in that lifestyle.
You know, Brittany generally lived a very clean lifestyle as a teenager growing up. And having Braxton in her life, he introduced her to partying. He introduced her to the alcohol. He got her into smoking weed.
Brittany's parents had worked so hard to keep her out of that life. But all of that went out the window when she got involved with Braxton.
She started to change. She became more abrasive. She became more confrontational. All of the stuff that goes with drugs and alcohol trickled into her life.
Brittany's parents say they wanted to let their daughter make her own decisions, but they eventually felt the need to intervene.
They had taken steps to try to convince her that maybe she should end the relationship.
Yet Brittany wasn't willing to listen.
Regardless of what Mom says, she was in love with Braxton.
I just know he had something to do with this. That's the only thing I can think of.
At the end of the interview, St. Paul police officially declare Brittany a missing person.
We'll be sure to keep you updated every step of the way.
They also put an ATL on that vehicle as well, attempt to locate. So if anyone were to run her car, if they were driving around, then that would come back as a hit.
While the investigators wait for leads to come in, they reach out to their sole person of interest, Braxton Green.
Hello? Is this Braxton? Yes, who's this? I'm calling
from the St. Paul Police Department in reference to
Brittany Clardy.
And we said, hey, we need your help. We're looking for her.
Do you have a moment to come down this evening and talk about this?
To detectives' surprise, Braxton refuses.
Listen, I really don't have much to tell you.
He was very evasive. I mean, he sent red flags just a flying. Yeah, I don't know where she is either. I've been looking for her. She won't answer her phone. The last I heard, she said she was gonna go take a nap somewhere.
Because he would not come in and talk to them, they put out an APB.
What we found and discovered is that he had an arrest warrant out for him already in a separate domestic-related case. It was either to do with child care or a probation violation or something, but he was being looked for to be placed under arrest.
With Braxton nowhere to be found, for days the investigation hits a standstill. But on February 21st, 10 days after Brittany disappeared, investigators catch a huge break in the case.
Thank you. The Clardy family received a letter that the car Brittany had been driving was at this impound lot in Columbia Heights.
The tow company also informs them that the car was found in an apartment complex in Brooklyn Park, which is 20 miles from where the family resides.
Investigators immediately head to the impound lot, eager to search the vehicle.
Detectives quickly discover there's a large number of items piled up on that footwell area in the back seat. So very meticulously, they begin to remove these items so they can document each one as they go.
Brittany had an iPhone. They didn't find the iPhone, but they did find 2 burner phones.
We also found what was called a vanilla Visa card, and more prominently, a bed sheet that had a very distinct pattern to it.
Underneath the sheet, they find something that stops them dead in their tracks.
We moved the belongings around in the back seat and said, oh my gosh.
There's a body in the back of the car.
Ten days after Brittany Clardy disappeared, detectives have tracked her vehicle to an impound lot in the St. Paul suburb of Columbia Heights.
This was the car that was reported as being connected to Brittany as being a missing person.
Inside, they make a disturbing discovery.
Very quickly, they can see there's somebody's body in the back seat.
The body is nearly frozen solid.
It gets so cold in Minnesota, and that in essence kind of freezes the crime scene or freezes it in time.
It had been below freezing for many days leading up to her discovery, which gives us the ability to preserve some of that physical evidence that's still there. Some of the wounds haven't degraded. The body hasn't begun to decompose at all because it's been frozen.
The body is carefully removed from the vehicle and transported to the medical examiner's office, where they confirm it belongs to Brittany Clardy.
Once her identity was confirmed, that was very difficult news for her family to grapple with. They were still hoping that she was out there alive somewhere.
The parents are just totally devastated. Our daughter's gone.
Their pain is only worsened by the discovery that Brittany suffered a violent death.
The medical examiner found some ligature around the neck, that she had possibly been choked or strangled. They also found many blows to the head.
Brittany had somewhere between 15 and 17 blows to the back of her head. It was likely from a hammer.
Now more than ever, detectives want to speak with Brittany's elusive boyfriend, Braxton Green.
They had to talk to Braxton. We gotta bring this guy in. We gotta talk to him.
As patrol officers continue scouring the city for Braxton, detectives work on submitting a records request for the burner phones found in Brittany's car.
After locating the burner phones, it did set off some red flags for the detectives. They are aware that people involved in illegal activity are prone to use burner cell phones.
The vanilla Visa found in the vehicle also gives detectives pause.
That vanilla Visa is one of those visas where you can use it and no one knows who you are. Why would you need such a product?
Before detectives can answer that question, they get the news they've been waiting for.
Lo and behold, we got notification the boyfriend was arrested. They finally found him.
They were able to finally take him into custody, and they took him to the police station for questioning.
Under questioning, Braxton tells detectives the same thing he told them on the phone, that he has no idea what happened to Brittany.
I already told you everything I know.
He told them I had nothing to do with her disappearance. I have nothing to do with it.
He was denying it.
He tried to make it clear to the police that he did love Brittany. He said he really cared about her and that he would not do anything to hurt her.
When was the last time you saw her?
It was the night before she went missing. Then the next day she called me while she was out running around.
Brittany told him that she was tired and was gonna go to bed and take a nap and would see him later in the day.
We made plans to hang out that night, but a few hours went by and I didn't hear anything. I called her, but she wasn't answering.
He denies knowing about where she would have been that day. He denied having anything to do with her disappearance.
When it becomes clear that Braxton isn't going to offer up a confession, detectives try a different tactic.
They kept asking him, okay, if you didn't do anything to her, do you have anything that you know of that was going on in Brittany's life that would have led to her possibly being murdered?
We found burner phones and a disposable Visa in Brittany's car. Now, what can you tell me about that?
Police kept pressuring and pushing. That's when he told them something that they never thought of.
We did not expect this in any way, shape, or form.
Braxton told them that Brittany had engaged in online prostitution.
After 10 days of searching for missing Minnesota teenager Brittany Clardy, detectives made a disturbing discovery: the young woman's dead body in the back seat of her abandoned vehicle.
She had been strangled. She was struck in the head with a blunt object.
She was brutally murdered.
Now, less than 24 hours later, police have tracked down their prime suspect, Brittany's 23-year-old boyfriend, Braxton Green.
Braxton had refused to come in and speak with detectives. Now they had him in custody, and he was denying any involvement in this crime.
However, Braxton has admitted something else to the detectives, something they never could have imagined.
He said Brittany had been posting ads on sexual service websites and was engaging in sexual relations with clients for money.
Police find the claim hard to believe.
That came as a big surprise to the investigators.
It just didn't fit her profile. Didn't fit anything about her.
But Braxton insists he's telling the truth.
Were you pimping her out?
Hell no. I didn't even like that she was doing it. But she wanted the money.
Working in a recreation center, the pay wasn't just enough, and she wanted to buy things. She needed some extra cash, so she started thinking, how can I do it?
I don't feel like the prostitution is indicative of like who she was or her character. I think it was more, this was her first stab at independence and making her own decisions for herself.
She went on this one website a lot called Backpage or something like that.
The detectives are familiar with Backpage. At the time, it had become a notorious site for prostitution and sex trafficking.
People would go on there and say that these are the things they're willing to do for this amount of money.
Braxton said Brittany would make calls with those possible clients through her burner phones, and that's how she would engage in customers.
At first, Brittany wasn't offering sex.
It started off where she was just doing massages, but then she wanted the money you got for doing other stuff.
Although he didn't approve of what she was doing, Braxton says he would sometimes accompany Brittany when she met up with a client.
He admitted to police that at times he would go out on some of those calls with Brittany, and he would sit outside and wait for her in the car or whatever. This is a safety measure. Make sure nothing bad happened.
Some of these guys were sketchy. I didn't want her getting hurt.
Do you know if she met with any of these clients around the time she went missing?
I don't know, but she was talking about needing money, so I wouldn't be surprised.
By the end of the interview, detectives are starting to believe that Braxton is telling the truth.
He was very cooperative. He handed over his phone, all his information.
Braxton's phone, it was pinging off of towers that were not anywhere near the location of where Brittany's body was found.
He's in a different part of the Twin Cities metro area, not even close. Long story short is that we came out of the interview satisfied, thinking that he was not involved in her disappearance or in her death.
Now, the detectives have a new theory about what happened to Brittany.
They were beginning to think her murder might have been related to her activities as an escort.
our eyebrows raised and thought, well, maybe there's something here.
Detectives decide to canvass the apartment complex in Brooklyn Park where Brittany's car had been impounded.
The police had great reason to believe that Brittany was last alive, perhaps in Brooklyn Park.
So the investigation was extremely extensive. I mean, we were canvassing the area, pulling cameras in the area.
They knocked on doors all over that location, but no one remembered seeing Brittany or even knew who she was.
However, detectives make more progress when they get their hands on the data from Brittany's burner phones.
These records, they're voluminous. There's many dozens, if not hundreds of pages. What they find is in the last few hours of the afternoon of February 11th, Brittany's got some contacts with an Atlanta area code number.
It was a phone that was actually purchased and registered in the name of Alberto Palmer.
It gave them the key to this entire investigation.
For nearly 3 weeks, Minnesota detectives have been working to untangle the final hours of Brittany Clardy's life.
Investigators sought the records of Brittany's phone, the text messages, who's been calling her, who she's been calling.
Even though she was deceased, in a way she was kind of helping us solve this case through her phone records.
Now, detectives think they found the key to solving Brittany's murder buried in the call log of one of her burner phones.
Police discovered that Brittany had been in contact with a 25-year-old man named Alberto Palmer on the day that she disappeared.
There were several phone calls and messages that took place in the early afternoon hours of February 11th, even going back a couple days before that, about potentially Brittany providing some massage services to Mr. Palmer.
We did some work on the name Alberto Palmer. We found out that Mr. Palmer had a warrant out for his arrest out of a city called Chamblee, Georgia, and that's just outside Atlanta.
The reason for the warrant immediately sets off alarm bells.
He's wanted there for violent attacks against sex workers.
There were 3 different assault cases out of Chamblee, Georgia, involving Alberto, all 3 of which were females that were involved in prostitution and had gone over to his residence. And in all 3 cases, he had physically assaulted these females.
Had he done the same to Brittany Clardy? When investigators subpoena Alberto's phone records, they learn that he's recently been in communication with a family member who lives near where Brittany's car was found.
It was a few blocks from where the car was located, so now we have an address in Brooklyn Park.
He had actually ordered pizza to that address, I believe on the 11th, around where Brittany Clardy was murdered.
So now we're very curious.
However, more recent cell phone pings suggest that Alberto may have left Brooklyn Park in the days since Brittany's disappearance.
Alberto's phone number is going to a house in Woodbury, Minnesota. Brooklyn Park is on the west side. They're like 25, 30 miles apart.
So it's complicated the case a little bit because we had 2 separate locations. We had to plan basically simultaneous warrants at both locations.
On March 6th, the investigators launched their coordinated strike.
We were able to pretty much hit the Brooklyn Park location and the Woodbury location pretty close to the same time.
They do what's called the knock and talk. We're just gonna knock on the door, see who answers, and see if they know anything.
In Brooklyn Park, Alberto Palmer's family member comes to the door.
Hi, can I help you?
Yes, ma'am. We're with the St. Paul Police Department.
As the police talk to her, they find out, Alberto was in fact at that place on February 11th, the day that Brittany disappeared.
Alberto's family member agrees to show police the room where he had stayed.
Sure, come on in.
Thank you.
There appeared to be a cleanup inside as there were large bleach spots in one of the bedrooms.
She says, oh yeah. Then there was that day that I came home and he said he had spilled Kool-Aid and he made me help him clean it up.
So literally just pouring bleach on spots in the carpet.
Investigators don't think the stains were made by Kool-Aid.
They fairly easily pull up the carpet to reveal the blood that had soaked through into the subfloor. And at this point, they know this is likely the crime scene. This is likely where Brittany Clardy was killed.
Investigators' suspicions are all but confirmed when they show Alberto's family member a photo of the bedsheet they found covering Brittany's body.
It was a very distinctive pattern on the sheet.
It was a picture of a bed sheet that was hers that she knew was in their apartment.
Oh my God, yeah, that's my bed sheet, that's it.
The sheet that was used to cover Brittany Clardy in the car, we've now been able to trace back to coming from that residence.
Meanwhile, police officers across town are able to take Alberto Palmer into custody at the home in Woodbury, Minnesota, where his cell phone last pinged.
We were able to arrest the suspect without incident.
He had his backpack with him right where he was arrested. In his backpack was Brittany's iPhone.
Investigators immediately transport Alberto back to the station for questioning.
He's brought to the Anoka County Sheriff's Department where he gives an interview.
Alberto begins the interview by revealing some forthcoming information about his past.
I was diagnosed bipolar.
Okay.
I was going through therapy for over 10 years for anger problems, as well as I've been in a mental institution 3 times.
Alberto tells police he didn't do anything to Brittany Clardy, at least not that he can remember.
I tend to black out. It's hard for me to just remember things.
Is it black out and then do things that you would never dream of doing in real life?
Exactly.
For several hours, he denies knowing anything to do with Brittany's murder or even knowing Brittany.
But as the interrogation heats up, Alberto starts to tell a different story.
We would give him details, then it was like jogging his memory of what had taken place.
I need you to really dig deep into your noggin, and I want you to come out with the rest of it, because you know what happened.
I mean, Detective, I'm telling you what I remember.
Eventually, he acknowledges that he had solicited Brittany for sexual services. He acknowledged they had some degree of sex.
And finally, after hours of unrelenting interrogation, Alberto makes a shocking confession.
When I realized, what you just did, I honestly felt the devil inside of me.
Nearly a month after 18-year-old Brittany Clardy vanished, Minnesota police have arrested Alberto Palmer for killing her and hiding her body.
During the interview, he was giving some information but not coming clean with all the details of what had occurred.
Okay. All this, I'm stressed out, and just a lot of times I tend to forget things. I tend to black out.
He had remembered only bits and pieces.
But when Detective LaFamme confronts Alberto with the blood evidence they found in his family member's Brooklyn Park apartment, he starts to open up.
It's very, very clear from what happened up in Brooklyn Park that there was a lot of effort put into cleaning the room up, okay? There was a lot of effort to put this young lady in the car and to cover her up.
According to Alberto, he was experiencing one of his blackouts until it was too late.
The first thing I saw was when I was putting on a car search.
Okay.
Honestly, the only thing I remember is going in the car.
Alberto tells Detective LaFamme it was like he was possessed by an evil spirit.
When I realized, what you just did, I felt the devil. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I'm satanic or nothing, but just I felt the devil.
Yeah. What else was the devil doing?
Alberto claims he doesn't remember anything else that happened that night. But when investigators resume questioning the next morning, they have a breakthrough.
In our second day of interviewing, Sergeant Russ had a go at him. I had been the nice detective, and Russ went in and took a little bit of a different approach, which was really effective.
I've dealt with a lot of cases similar to yours as far as, possessions and people getting possessed by the devil and poltergeist like that, right? I get it, dude. You can get possessed, happens to you, and you're like, what the f am I doing? I get it, and I've dealt with it, and that's kind of why I deal with a lot of people when I came in and try and give you one last shot here, right? Mike's a decent guy, but he's not real good with the being possessed. You know what I'm saying? So what happened? You got a pen? You want to write it? I'm sure you get. I'll write, man. I'll write. Tell me it's recording.
Alberto admits that on February 11th, while his family member was at work, he invited Brittany over to have sex.
He says that at some point they began to tussle, I believe were his words.
As we was having sex, it's like we started to fight. And as we fighting, it's like we tussling in the room on the bed.
What are you doing? Get off me!
He describes that he choked her.
I choked her to the point where she was just laying there.
He choked her to the point of unconsciousness, believing she was dead. And while he was gathering himself, realized that she was still alive.
Alberto says he knew he couldn't let Brittany leave after what happened between them.
So I ran in the kitchen and was looking in the drawer.
He went through the kitchen drawers, found a hammer, brought a hammer up to the room.
As I ran back in the room, she was trying to get past me. We was still touching it again. So I hit her. I just kept hitting her. And it's like I couldn't stop.
He couldn't give an exact amount of times, but brutally hit her on the head numerous times until she wasn't moving anymore.
Once Brittany was dead, Alberto says he came up with a plan to get rid of her body.
The only thing I think is like, now I have to get this away from you. And that's when I put it in the car.
He admitted to taking the car up to the apartment lot and walking back, disposing of the keys on the way.
Immediately following Alberto's stunning confession, police charge him with first-degree murder.
You made a mistake. You're going to stand up and be accountable and responsible for that.
Based off of his previous altercations in Georgia and then him coming to Minnesota and doing the same thing, it seemed like he definitely was developing into somewhat of a psychopathic killer.
It was a relief to have him off the streets, so he couldn't hurt any more young women.
But before Alberto stands trial, investigators on the opposite side of the Mississippi River make a grisly discovery.
In May of 2013, a body had been found in the trunk of a car that was in an impound lot in Minneapolis.
When word of the events reaches detectives in St. Paul, they're struck by the similarities to Brittany's murder.
It was eerily similar to the Clarity case, so right away Alberto was kind of a person of interest.
The new victim is identified as 24-year-old Clarissa Cook, a young woman who lived in Brooklyn Park.
She had also been advertising escort services on Backpage.com. And upon doing some search warrants on her phone number, we were able to find out that Alberto was the last person that Clarissa's phone had any communication with.
Crime scene evidence eventually reveals that Clarissa was killed in the same apartment where Brittany Clardy's life was taken.
Blood samples did come back to Clarissa.
Armed with this new evidence, prosecutors believe they have what they need to convict Alberto of both murders. But to avoid a painful trial for the victims' families, they decide to offer him a plea deal.
One of the things we talked with the Clardy family about is anytime you go to trial, if somebody's convicted, that's not the end of it. A conviction will automatically go to Supreme Court on appeal. The family didn't want to go through that emotional roller coaster.
In exchange for pleading guilty to the murders of Brittany Clardy and Clarissa Cook, Alberto manages to avoid a life sentence.
What this means is Mr. Palmer serves 30 years before the possibility of parole. The minute he's paroled, if he ever is, he begins his 40-year sentence for the murder of Brittany Clardy. So likely Mr. Palmer will never be released from custody.
For the loved ones of Alberto Palmer's victims, it's a bittersweet conclusion to an unthinkable tragedy.
Both Brittany and Clarissa were very young females. They had their whole entire lives ahead of them.
It's sad and very tragic what happened.
Brittany was a very responsible girl. Brittany did all the right things, and nobody knew about this secret side of what she was doing. Her family didn't as well. It can happen to anyone, so all people, all parents need to be really vigilant.
Brittany is all of us. I think we all need to be really honest about how vulnerable.
The first thing they noticed was the smell. Not blood, not decay, something worse. Bleach, fresh paint, burned wood. The smell of a man trying too hard to erase something. Detective Ray Walker would later tell reporters he felt it immediately the moment he stepped through Harold Bennett's front door. He couldn't explain it then. He couldn't explain it years later. Certain places simply feel wrong. Some houses hold silence differently. Some walls seem to absorb things they should never have witnessed. Outside, Maple Creek looked like the safest neighborhood in America. Children rode bicycles beneath orange evening skies. Neighbors waved from porches. Dogs barked behind white fences. Lawns were cut every Saturday. Christmas lights appeared every winter like clockwork. People here didn't lock doors during the daytime. People here trusted each other. People here believed monsters lived somewhere else. For nearly 4 decades, nobody questioned Harold Bennett. Not the church, not the school district, not the police officers who shook his hand at charity events, not the families who invited him to backyard cookouts, not the neighbors who handed him spare house keys before leaving town for vacation. Harold Bennett was 72 years old, retired electrician, Vietnam veteran, volunteer baseball coach, friendly old man with gray hair and reading glasses, the kind of neighbor who fixed broken fences without asking for money, the kind of man newspapers later described with words like quiet and respected after the truth finally explodes into daylight. But long before the cameras arrived, long before detectives walked through his front door, long before the entire country learned his name, there was Kelly Monroe. August 14th, 1987. Friday night. County Fair. 16 years old. Dark brown hair. Honor roll student. Worked weekends at her father's hardware store. Kelly told her parents she would be home before midnight. Her mother remembered every detail of that conversation years later. Kelly wore a blue denim jacket because the weather forecast predicted cooler temperatures after sunset. She complained about the jacket, making her look younger. Her father laughed and handed her $20. Normal things, small things, the kind of memories families replay endlessly after ordinary life suddenly ends. Witnesses later remembered seeing Kelly near the Ferris wheel around 10:30 p.m., laughing with friends, eating cotton candy, talking about school starting again in September. Then around 11:45 p.m., several people noticed her standing alone near the parking area, waiting. Somebody remembered seeing a maintenance worker speaking with her. Blue jacket, tool belt, middle-aged man. Nobody thought much about it, because county fair workers spoke with people constantly, because danger almost always looks harmless before it happens. Midnight came. Kelly never returned home. Her mother stayed awake waiting. 1 a.m. No Kelly. 2 a.m. Still nothing. By sunrise, her father was driving roads around town, searching gas stations and parking lots. Police initially assumed teenage runaway. Friends disagreed immediately. Kelly wasn't that kind of kid. No secret boyfriend. No fights at home. No packed bags. Nothing gone from her bedroom. By day 2, the entire town began searching. Volunteers covered forests. Dogs tracked scent trails near roads. Helicopters circled farmland. Churches held prayer gatherings. People printed flyers. Then, on the 3rd morning, a farmer found her, 20 miles outside Maple Creek, Blackwater Canal. Her body lay tangled among weeds near the muddy bank. Detectives arriving at the scene immediately understood something horrible happened there. Kelly's hands were covered in defensive wounds, fingernails broken, cuts across her fingers, bruises around her wrists. She fought. Hard. Very hard. Investigators believe Kelly struggled until the very last seconds. But despite the violence, despite the brutality, the killer left almost nothing behind. No witnesses, no fingerprints, no murder weapon. Just one tiny fragment of male DNA beneath a broken fingernail. In 1987, it meant almost nothing. Technology wasn't ready. The sample entered evidence storage. Detectives chased dead leads. Months became years. Years became decades. Kelly's parents grew older. Retired detectives moved away. New murders replaced old headlines. Boxes filled with evidence gathered dust inside climate-controlled storage facilities. And eventually, people stopped talking about Kelly Monroe, except her family. Families never stop. Kelly's mother kept her bedroom untouched for 11 years. Clothes remained inside the closet. Books stayed beside the bed. Birthday cards sat exactly where Kelly left them. Some nights she swore she could hear footsteps upstairs. Some mornings she forgot for a few seconds Kelly was gone. Then reality returned all over again, like losing someone repeatedly. 37 years passed. Presidents changed. Wars started and ended. Children born after Kelly disappeared became adults. Then science caught up with history. The state's cold case task force reopened several unsolved murders using advanced forensic genealogy technology. Investigators examined Kelly's DNA evidence again. Tiny sample, almost microscopic, still preserved after all those years. They uploaded the profile, expecting nothing. Months of dead ends, months of silence. Instead, 48 hours later, a possible family connection appeared. Then another, and another. Detectives narrowed family trees branch by branch until one name finally surfaced: Harold Bennett. At first, investigators believed there had to be some mistake. Harold had no criminal history, no violence, no arrests, no complaints. Nothing connected him publicly to Kelly Monroe except living nearby during the 1980s. But detectives kept digging, and slowly, the cracks began showing. Employment records revealed Harold worked maintenance at the county fair in August 1987. Witness statements buried deep inside forgotten case files describe an older maintenance worker talking with Kelly near the parking lot. Blue jacket, tool belt, middle-aged man. Nobody followed the lead aggressively back then. Nobody had enough information. Nobody knew they had just brushed shoulders with a predator. Then detectives uncovered something else. 2 unsolved murders. Teenage girls. 1983, 1984. Different counties, different investigators, different methods. Cases never connected publicly until DNA. Partial sample from both crime scenes matched the same unknown profile. The same profile now pointing directly toward Harold Bennett. Suddenly investigators stopped seeing coincidence. Suddenly they saw a pattern. Suddenly they saw a nightmare. Detectives needed confirmation. They couldn't approach Harold directly. Not yet. So they watched him for days. Harold followed routine almost perfectly. Morning coffee at 6:30. Newspaper. Hardware store. Church meetings. Evening television. Then Sunday afternoon at a community fundraiser. Harold drank coffee and threw away the paper cup. Investigators collected it immediately. Laboratory results arrived 6 days later. Match confirmed. The room reportedly went silent. After 37 years, they finally identified Kelly Monroe's killer. But nobody in that room understood something yet. Nobody realized Kelly Monroe wasn't simply the beginning of the story. She was the first loose thread. And once investigators pulled it, everything underneath started coming apart. Because beneath Harold Bennett's garage, hidden beneath rusted shelves and stacks of paint cans, there was a trapdoor. And underneath that trapdoor, darkness waited. The trapdoor was hidden beneath a stack of warped plywood and rusted paint cans, so heavy investigators initially thought the floor beneath Harold Bennett's garage was solid concrete. Detective Ray Walker noticed the scratch marks first. Thin grooves near the edge of an old metal cabinet. Fresh marks. Repeated movement. Somebody had been sliding the cabinet back and forth recently. When officers forced aside, the room changed instantly. The smell rose first. Damp earth, mold, bleach, something chemical underneath all of it. Then they saw the handle. A steel ring bolted into wooden boards cut perfectly into the concrete floor. Nobody spoke for several seconds, because every detective standing there felt the same thing at once. Harold Bennett had been hiding something underground for a very long time. The hinges screamed when investigators pulled the door open. A narrow staircase disappeared into darkness beneath the garage. Concrete steps, handrails, electric wiring running down the walls. Not some improvised hiding place. Built carefully, planned carefully. Detective Walker descended first with flashlight drawn, while forensic teams followed behind him, recording every inch of the scene. The staircase extended farther than expected, nearly 20 feet below ground before opening into a narrow underground corridor reinforced with wooden beams. And at the end of that corridor sat a steel door, locked from the outside. The sound of bolt cutters echoed through the tunnel. Then the door opened. The room beyond looked frozen in time. Mattress, chair, rusted sink, soundproof insulation stapled behind wooden wall panels, chains bolted into concrete. Investigators stopped moving. Nobody needed to say it aloud anymore. This was not storage. This was not a storm shelter. This room had one purpose: human captivity. Forensic photographers documented everything while agents searched the underground chamber inch by inch. The mattress contained biological evidence: hair strands, blood traces, fibers. The sink drain revealed female DNA from multiple unidentified individuals. Fingernail scratches scarred sections of the walls, so deeply investigators believed someone clawed at the concrete repeatedly, trying to escape. Then they found the box. Locked metal container hidden beneath loose floorboards beside the bed. Inside sat dozens of photographs. Women, teenage girls, some crying, some restrained, some appearing unconscious. Several photographs dated back to the late 1970s. Others looked horrifyingly recent. One investigator reportedly walked out of the underground room physically sick after reviewing only a handful, because Harold Bennett did not simply kill. He documented. He collected. And somewhere inside that collection, investigators feared there were victims nobody even knew existed yet. The media frenzy outside Maple Creek intensified by the hour. Helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting live footage, while national news stations transformed Harold Bennett from respected retiree into the center of one of the country's most disturbing cold case investigations. Reporters interviewed neighbors standing in driveways struggling to reconcile the smiling old man they knew with the nightmare unfolding beneath his garage. Some cried during interviews. Others defended him stubbornly. He fixed my roof after a storm for free. He coached my son in baseball. He never seemed dangerous. That sentence repeated constantly. He never seemed dangerous. But monsters rarely do. Meanwhile, investigators transported Harold Bennett into county custody for formal interrogation. Detectives expected panic once confronted with the DNA evidence, an underground chamber. Instead, Harold remained calm. Too calm. He answered questions politely, asked for coffee, commented on the weather. When detectives finally placed crime scene photographs across the interrogation table, Harold adjusted his glasses slowly and stared at them without visible emotion. Then he smiled, very slightly. Detective Walker later admitted that smile disturbed him more than any evidence discovered underground, because it looked like relief. As if Harold spent decades waiting for someone to finally uncover what he buried beneath ordinary life. The interrogation lasted 9 hours. Harold denied everything initially, denied knowing Kelly Monroe, denied recognizing victims in photographs, denied using the underground room for anything illegal. But detectives noticed something strange every time they mentioned one particular name: Daniel Reeves, former deputy sheriff, Harold's longtime best friend. The moment detectives brought up Reeves, Harold stopped speaking entirely. Complete silence. He requested an attorney soon afterward. And just like that, the investigation became much larger. Detectives immediately shifted focus toward Daniel Reeves, 74 years old, retired deputy sheriff, decorated officer, widower, lived alone in a quiet house near Lake Briar, less than 10 miles from Maple Creek. More importantly, Daniel Reeves helped investigate Kelly Monroe's murder in 1987. The implications terrified investigators, because if Reeves participated in the crimes or helped conceal evidence, then law enforcement corruption may have protected a serial predator for decades. Detectives reopened old case files searching for Reeves' involvement. His name appeared everywhere. Kelly Monroe, Angela Price, Michelle Turner. 3 unsolved murders connected through DNA. 3 investigations Reeves assisted directly. Then investigators discovered something worse. Evidence disappeared repeatedly from those cases. Missing photographs, lost witness statements, improperly cataloged forensic samples. At the time, nobody suspected sabotage. Now detectives saw a pattern. Now detectives saw obstruction. Now detectives saw somebody standing inside investigations, quietly steering attention away from Harold Bennett year after year. Federal authorities joined the case within 48 hours. The FBI Behavioral Analysis Unit reviewed evidence recovered from Harold's underground chamber and reached a horrifying conclusion. The room showed signs of long-term repeated use spanning decades. Analysts believe multiple victims may have been held there for extended periods before being murdered or released. That possibility haunted investigators immediately. If some victims survived encounters with Harold Bennett, they might still be alive, somewhere carrying memories too traumatic to report or understand fully. Tip lines exploded nationwide after media outlets released limited details about the underground chamber. Women from multiple states contacted authorities describing encounters with an older man matching Harold's description dating back decades. Several reported waking disoriented after accepting rides from strangers during the 1980s and 1990s. Others remembered basement rooms, handcuffs, cameras. Most never reported anything officially at the time. Fear kept them silent. Shame kept them silent. And predators like Harold Bennett depended on that silence. Then another breakthrough arrived. Forensic teams enhanced one of the videotapes recovered from the basement archive. The footage showed a terrified young woman tied to a chair while 2 male voices argued somewhere behind camera. 2 voices, one believed to be Harold Bennett, the second still unidentified publicly. Analysts isolated fragments of conversation buried beneath static. She saw your badge. You said nobody would connect us. We should have buried her farther south. Badge. The word hit investigators like a hammer, because suddenly Daniel Reeves stopped looking like a possible accomplice. He started looking essential. Federal agents obtained warrants for Reeves's property immediately. But when officers arrived at his house before dawn, the front door stood open, coffee still warm in the kitchen, television running, and Daniel Reeves gone. The disappearance detonated through the investigation task force. An active manhunt launched across 3 counties while helicopters searched forests surrounding Lake Briar. Reporters flooded police checkpoints broadcasting speculation nonstop. Detectives feared Reeves might flee permanently, or worse, destroy evidence before investigators reached it. Then a state trooper discovered Reeves's abandoned truck near a remote boat launch 6 hours later. Inside the vehicle, officers found maps, cash, a revolver, and newspaper clippings about Kelly Monroe's murder carefully folded inside the glove compartment. But Daniel Reeves himself had vanished. Meanwhile, forensic excavation teams returned to Harold Bennett's property after cadaver dogs reacted aggressively near sections of the backyard. Ground-penetrating radar detected irregular soil disturbances beneath an old gardening area Harold maintained obsessively for years. The excavation began under floodlights that same night. Rain hammered the neighborhood, while reporters watched from barricades outside the property line. Then around 2:13 a.m., An investigator's shovel struck something hard beneath the mud. Not rock. Bone. Human bone. The backyard fell completely silent, because everyone suddenly understood the nightmare underground beneath Harold Bennett's house was far from over, and whatever investigators were about to uncover had been buried there for a very long time. Rain turned Harold Bennett's backyard into black mud by the time forensic teams finished setting floodlights around the excavation site. Police tape snapped violently in the wind, while reporters stood behind barricades, whispering into cameras, broadcasting live to millions of people watching across the country. Nobody outside the perimeter understood exactly what investigators found yet, but everyone sensed it. Something terrible was coming out of the ground. The first bone appeared only 18 inches beneath the flower garden Harold Bennett spent years maintaining obsessively every spring. Human femur. Female. Forensic anthropologists confirmed it within minutes. Then another bone surfaced beside it, then fragments of skull. The excavation accelerated carefully beneath pounding rain, while detectives watched in exhausted silence. Nobody joked anymore. Nobody spoke louder than necessary, because every shovel cutting into that soil revealed evidence of a nightmare hidden beneath one quiet suburban home for decades. Around 4:40 a.m., investigators uncovered the first complete set of remains. Young female, hands bound behind the back with electrical wire, small fragments of blue fabric, still clinging to the skeleton. One detective reportedly walked away from the scene the moment they found the wire because his daughter owned a jacket almost identical in color. The emotional weight inside the command tent became unbearable fast, especially after forensic teams discovered a second grave only 6 feet away, then a third. By sunrise, investigators identified at least 4 burial sites in Harold Bennett's backyard. 4. The neighborhood woke to the sound of generators, helicopters, and television crews describing one of the largest cold case excavation scenes in state history. Residents stood on sidewalks crying openly while federal agents moved evidence containers through the rain. Some neighbors refused to leave their homes at all. Others gathered near barricades, staring silently toward the Bennett property, as if trying to understand how evil lived beside them for so long unnoticed. Then came the press conference. State police confirmed investigators believed Harold Bennett could be connected to multiple homicides spanning several decades. Officials refused to provide exact victim numbers, while families of missing women flooded law enforcement phone lines begging for information. Across Maple Creek, old fears resurfaced instantly because people remembered girls who disappeared here. Not many, just enough. A waitress who vanished driving home in 1994. A teenager last seen walking near railroad tracks in 1981. A runaway nobody searched aggressively for because authorities assumed she left voluntarily. Tiny stories buried beneath time. Until now. Meanwhile, 40 miles away near Lake Briar, the manhunt for Daniel Reeves intensified. Tracking dogs followed his scent from the abandoned truck down toward the shoreline before losing it near dense woods surrounding the lake. Investigators searched cabins, hunting camps, and storage buildings connected to Reeves while federal analysts reconstructed decades of communication between him and Harold Bennett. The results terrified them. Phone records, financial transfers, shared property leases, camping permits, dozens of overlapping patterns stretching back more than 30 years. Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves weren't simply friends. They operated like partners. Then investigators uncovered an old photograph hidden inside Reeves's garage workshop. 3 men standing together beside a fishing boat sometime during the late 1980s. Harold Bennett, Daniel Reeves, and a third unidentified man investigators did not recognize immediately. Middle-aged, heavy-set, dark beard, wearing county sheriff's department sunglasses. The image changed everything, because now detectives feared the corruption surrounding the murders reached even deeper into local law enforcement than anyone imagined. The task force expanded overnight. Federal agencies arrived. Behavioral profilers reviewed evidence nonstop. Forensic genealogists began identifying remains recovered from Harold's backyard, while technicians restored videotapes found inside the underground chamber. And then investigators discovered the room upstairs. Harold Bennett's attic looked ordinary at first glance. Dusty boxes, old furniture, Christmas decorations, military memorabilia. But Detective Walker noticed unusual insulation panels along the far wall behind stacks of storage bins. Hidden door, locked. Inside waited another secret. The room was small, barely large enough for a mattress and metal desk. Soundproof completely. No windows, just shelves lined with notebooks dating back to 1978. Harold Bennett's journals, dozens of them, carefully organized by year. Investigators reading the entries described the experience as psychologically horrifying because Harold wrote about victims the way ordinary people describe gardening projects or weather conditions. Clinical, detached, emotionless. Girl near highway fought harder than expected. Brown-haired one cried for mother entire first night. Danny says younger girls easier control. Danny, again. Every page pulled Daniel Reeves deeper into the nightmare. But one journal entry froze the entire investigation. August 17, 1987. 3 days after Kelly Monroe disappeared. She almost escaped. Detectives immediately focused on the rest of the entry. According to Harold's writing, Kelly Monroe remained alive for at least 2 days after her abduction. He described her as difficult and defiant. He complained repeatedly that Daniel Reeves underestimated her. Then came the line investigators could barely process. Danny wanted to let her go after she saw the badge. The room reportedly fell silent, because now detectives understood why Kelly Monroe died. Not random violence, not impulsive murder. Kelly saw something she was never supposed to see. A sheriff's badge, a law enforcement officer involved directly in her captivity. And once that happened, releasing her became impossible. Then another horrifying detail emerged from the journals. Harold repeatedly referred to the room beneath the orchard. Investigators searched the Bennett property maps immediately. No orchard existed currently, but older satellite photographs from the late 1980s revealed something disturbing. Years earlier, Harold maintained a small apple orchard behind the property line near the woods. The trees disappeared sometime around 2002. Ground-penetrating radar teams moved there immediately. Within hours, they discovered another underground structure, larger than the first one, much larger. Excavation crews worked nonstop through the night, while national news coverage intensified into full-scale hysteria. Commentators compared the case to some of the most infamous serial murder investigations in American history. Former victims of abduction, crimes appeared on television discussing trauma. Cold case families traveled to Maple Creek, carrying photographs of missing daughters, hoping investigators might finally uncover answers buried beneath Harold Bennett's land. Then one family recognized something from the evidence photos released publicly. A necklace, tiny silver cross, recovered beside one of the backyard skeletons. The Calloway family from Indiana contacted authorities immediately. Their daughter, Lisa, disappeared during a road trip in 1992. 17 years old. Never found. Until now. DNA confirmation arrived 36 hours later. One of the bodies buried behind Harold Bennett's house belonged to Lisa Calloway. Suddenly, the investigation crossed state lines officially. And if Harold abducted victims from multiple states, then the true number of murders could be far larger than anyone imagined. Meanwhile, forensic technicians finally restored clearer audio from one of the videotapes recovered underground. Investigators gathered silently inside the FBI Mobile Command Center, listening through headphones as the recording played. Woman crying, chains rattling softly. Then voices. Harold Bennett speaking calmly. Daniel Reeves answering from somewhere nearby. And another sound, a child crying faintly in the background. Everyone in the room froze, because none of the known victims were children. Technicians replayed the tape repeatedly. No mistake. Child's voice. Very young. Terrified. The implication hit investigators like a freight train. Either a child witnessed crimes, or children themselves became victims. Then the excavation team beneath the old orchard made another discovery. Concrete staircase. Descending underground. deeper than the first chamber. Much deeper. Detective Walker led the entry team personally just after midnight. The underground passage smelled colder somehow. Older. Air thick with mildew and stagnant moisture. Unlike the smaller room beneath Harold's garage, this structure felt industrial. Reinforced steel beams, electrical wiring, drainage systems. Built to last. Built carefully. And at the end of the tunnel, they found cells. 3 of them, locked from the outside. Inside one cell, investigators discovered scratches covering nearly the entire wall surface. Thousands of lines carved into concrete by fingernails or metal fragments over many years. Tally marks. Someone counting days. Maybe months. Maybe years. Then forensic teams found something else hidden beneath one of the rusted beds. Recent DNA. Very recent. Not decades old. Not historical evidence. Fresh. The laboratory estimated whoever left the biological material underground may have been there within the past 12 months. The realization spread through the tunnel instantly. Every investigator understood the same horrifying possibility at once. This place wasn't only part of the past. Someone may have been held captive down there recently. And if Harold Bennett did not act alone, then somebody else connected to the nightmare might still be out there. The laboratory confirmation arrived at 3:17 a.m. Fresh human DNA recovered from the underground cell beneath Harold Bennett's old orchard belonged to a female estimated between 16 and 25 years old. More disturbing still, forensic analysts determined the biological traces could not have been older than 8 months. 8 months. The room inside the FBI Mobile Command Center reportedly went silent after the results appeared on screen, because suddenly the Bennett investigation stopped being only a cold case horror story buried in the past. It became active, immediate, alive. Someone may have survived underground recently, or worse, someone connected to Harold Bennett may still be abducting victims. Detective Ray Walker immediately requested a complete timeline reconstruction of Harold's movements during the previous 2 years. Investigators combed through gas station receipts, toll records, church attendance logs, pharmacy purchases, security footage, anything capable of revealing whether Harold continued operating long after age supposedly slowed him down. Instead of finding signs of retirement, they found escalation. Harold traveled constantly. Short, unexplained trips across state lines. Remote highways. Rural campgrounds. Motel stays under fake names. Then investigators uncovered another chilling pattern. Missing persons reports. Young women, mostly vulnerable. Runaways. Foster care teens. Drug addiction histories. Victim society often searches for less aggressively. Several disappearances occurred near areas where Harold Bennett's phone records placed him repeatedly. The nightmare was still growing while Maple Creek believed the old man next door spent his evenings watching baseball and watering tomatoes. Meanwhile, excavation teams continued searching the underground complex beneath the orchard. The deeper forensic crews explored, the clearer the structure's purpose became. This wasn't simply a hidden bunker. It was a prison. Steel hooks bolted into walls. Ventilation systems. Storage rooms filled with canned food and medical supplies. Soundproof insulation layered behind concrete. One room contained shelves lined with women's clothing separated carefully by size and age. Another held videotapes. Hundreds of them, some dating back decades. Others labeled with recent years. 2021, 2022, 2023. The discovery shattered any remaining illusion that Harold Bennett stopped killing long ago. Then investigators found the drawings. Taped along the inside wall of one underground room were children's crayon drawings faded by moisture and age. Houses, trees, stick figures, smiling suns. One drawing showed a little girl holding hands with a woman beside something that looked like a cage. Detective Walker reportedly stared at the images for several minutes without speaking, because now investigators feared children may not have merely witnessed the crimes. Children may have lived underground. That possibility changed the investigation completely. Federal agents reopened dozens of unsolved child disappearances connected geographically to areas Harold Bennett visited over 4 decades. Analysts cross-referenced every known missing juvenile case near campgrounds, county fairs, highway rest stops, and rural communities connected to Harold or Daniel Reeves. Then another tape surfaced, this one clearer. The footage opened inside a basement room investigators did not immediately recognize. A terrified teenage girl sat handcuffed to a metal chair while somebody behind the camera breathed heavily. Then Harold Bennett stepped briefly into frame. Younger, maybe late 40s. Smiling calmly, he placed a bottle of water beside the girl before speaking softly toward someone off camera. Danny, she's awake. Seconds later, another man entered view. Daniel Reeves. No longer speculation. No longer theory. Visible proof. Former Deputy Sheriff Daniel Reeves stood directly beside a restrained victim inside the recording. The FBI officially issued a nationwide fugitive alert before sunrise. Armed and dangerous. Possible serial homicide suspect. Former law enforcement officer. The country exploded. Television stations interrupted programming continuously. Former residents of Maple Creek flooded social media with stories about Daniel Reeves mentoring children, volunteering at church picnics, attending police memorial events. The contrast sickened people everywhere. A trusted deputy sheriff helping abduct and imprison women while wearing a badge designed to protect them. Then came the phone call. At 11:42 a.m., a frightened woman contacted the FBI tip line from Oklahoma after seeing Daniel Reeves' face broadcast nationally. Her voice shook so badly investigators initially struggled understanding her. She claimed Daniel Reeves abducted her in 1998, held her underground for nearly 2 weeks, then released her beside a highway hundreds of miles away. The woman never reported the attack officially. She believed nobody would believe her story. According to her statement, Reeves repeatedly mentioned the old man in Maple Creek during captivity. He warned her police officers would protect him if she ever talked. Investigators tracked down several similar accounts within hours. Women from different states, different decades, same descriptions. Basement rooms, cameras, a calm older man, and another man carrying a sheriff's badge. The pattern became impossible to deny. Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves operated together for years, maybe decades. Then one survivor described something investigators had never heard before. A third voice. Male. Younger. According to the witness, sometime during captivity, she heard Harold arguing with a younger man upstairs. She remembered the argument clearly because the younger voice sounded angry. Too risky. That girl saw my face. Danny should have finished it already. Investigators replayed the interview repeatedly. Another man. Younger. Not Harold. Not Reeves. Which meant the nightmare may extend beyond two aging predators. Meanwhile, Daniel Reeves remained missing. Tracking teams searched forests surrounding Lake Briar nonstop, while federal marshals investigated every known associate connected to Reeves's past. Former deputies were questioned aggressively. Some cooperated immediately. Others lawyered up. Then investigators uncovered evidence somebody inside the sheriff's department accessed archive case files connected to Kelly Monroe only weeks before Harold Bennett's arrest. Unauthorized access. Recent. Using retired department credentials belonging to Daniel Reeves. But digital records showed something strange. The files were open from inside the sheriff's office itself, meaning someone still employed there may have helped Reeves after the investigation reopened. The corruption surrounding Maple Creek deepened again. Fear spread fast through the town. Residents no longer trusted local authorities fully. Rumors circulated everywhere. Grocery stores, churches, gas stations. People whispered about deputies behaving strangely during older investigations. Parents remembered officers dismissing runaway reports too quickly during the 1990s. Women recalled uncomfortable encounters with law enforcement they ignored for years. The line between protector and predator suddenly looked terrifyingly thin. Then another body surfaced. Excavation crews searching land near the old orchard uncovered skeletal remains buried beneath layers of concrete and gravel approximately 50 yards from the underground entrance. Female, younger than previous victims, maybe 14 or 15. But that wasn't what shocked investigators most. The skull showed blunt force trauma consistent with repeated impacts, extreme violence, personal violence. And near the remains, forensic teams recovered a small silver bracelet engraved with one name, Emily. The bracelet immediately connected to a cold case from 2008. Emily Vickers, 14 years old, vanished while walking home from school in northern Arkansas. Authorities suspected abduction for years but never found evidence. Now investigators understood Emily likely never left Maple Creek alive. The revelation transformed public anger into fury. Because Harold Bennett abducted children for decades, while entire systems failed repeatedly to stop him. Then Detective Walker made another discovery inside Harold's journals. Toward the back of a notebook dated 2009, Harold described conflict growing between himself and Daniel Reeves. Danny losing control. Too emotional after Arkansas girl. Boy keeps asking questions. Boy. Investigators focus immediately. What boy? The next pages reveal fragments only. He shouldn't have brought the kid underground. Now he knows too much. He watches everything. The task force suddenly feared a horrifying possibility. Someone younger may have been raised around the crimes. A son, a relative, an apprentice. The idea sounded impossible at first, until detectives reviewed old photographs from Daniel Reeves' family records. One image showed Daniel standing beside a teenage boy sometime around 2007 outside a fishing cabin near Lake Briar. The boy looked approximately 15 years old. Thin build, dark hair, expressionless stare. On the back of the photograph, someone wrote a single name, Evan. Investigators identified him quickly. Evan Reeves, Daniel's grandson, missing since 2010, officially classified as runaway at age 18. Never found. But now detectives began wondering something far more disturbing. What if Evan Reeves never truly disappeared? What if he simply inherited the nightmare? Then at 2:06 a.m., state police received a 911 call from a truck driver outside Western Tennessee. The caller reported seeing an older man matching Daniel Reeves' description at an abandoned roadside motel, armed, bleeding, and according to the witness, not alone. A younger man was with him. Rain hammered the roof of the abandoned motel, so hard agents could barely hear each other moving into position. The roadside property sat isolated beside a forgotten highway in western Tennessee, half swallowed by weeds and darkness. Broken neon letters flickered weakly above the office entrance, while police cruisers killed their lights nearly 200 yards away to avoid detection. Federal marshals surrounded the building just after 3 a.m. Inside room 12, according to the truck driver's 911 call, an older man matching Daniel Reeves' description checked in using cash less than 2 hours earlier. And he wasn't alone. Detective Ray Walker arrived wearing body armor still stained with mud from the Maple Creek excavation site. Nobody inside the task force slept much anymore. Every hour uncovered another grave, another victim, another secret buried beneath decades of silence. But tonight felt different. Because for the first time since Harold Bennett's arrest, investigators believed they might finally corner someone alive who knew the full truth. The tactical team breached room 12 at 3:14 a.m. Flashbang, doors splintering inward, weapons raised, shouting, then silence. The room was empty, still warm, television running static, 2 untouched cups of coffee near the window, and blood smeared across the bathroom sink. Fresh blood. Whoever stayed there fled minutes earlier. Agents searched the room aggressively, while K-9 units tracked footprints leading behind the motel toward thick woods bordering the highway. Near the rear parking lot, investigators discovered something else abandoned beside overflowing trash bins. Medical supplies, bandages, old sheriff's department jacket. The name stitched above the pocket read, Reeves. Forensic teams confirmed the blood belonged to Daniel Reeves before sunrise, but Daniel himself remained gone. And so did the younger man seen with him. The motel room yielded more disturbing clues by daylight. Investigators recovered maps marked with circles spanning Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, and Tennessee. Several locations matched missing persons cases already under review by the FBI task force. Others meant nothing yet. One map circled a small town in southern Kentucky 3 separate times. Ash Hollow. Population barely 1,200 people. No obvious connection to Harold Bennett publicly. But investigators noticed something chilling immediately. Harold Bennett purchased rural property outside Ash Hollow in 1998 under a shell company nobody previously linked to him. The task force mobilized within hours. Meanwhile, back in Maple Creek, forensic identification of the backyard remains continued revealing horrors almost faster than investigators could process them. Families from across the country arrived daily carrying photographs of daughters, sisters, cousins who disappeared years earlier, hoping DNA testing might finally provide answers. Some got them. Some collapsed crying inside temporary family briefing tents after forensic specialists confirmed matches. Others left still trapped between hope and grief. The cemetery outside Maple Creek began filling with flowers every night. Candles, teddy bears, missing person posters laminated against the rain. The town no longer looked like quiet suburbia. It looked haunted, and everywhere cameras turned, the same question echoed endlessly. How many victims were there really? Then the videotapes revealed another nightmare. FBI analysts restored footage from several damaged recordings recovered beneath Harold Bennett's orchard. One tape dated October 2008 showed a teenage girl chained inside one of the underground cells while two male voices argued nearby. Investigators identified one voice as Harold immediately. The second belonged to Daniel Reeves. But midway through the recording, a third voice entered. Young male, calm, emotionless. Grandpa, somebody's outside. The room inside the FBI lab reportedly went silent. Grandpa. Investigators replayed the clip repeatedly while voice analysts compared speech patterns against archive recordings connected to Daniel Reeves's missing grandson. Match probability. High. Evan Reeves, which meant the boy officially declared runaway 16 years earlier, may have remained inside the nightmare all along. Maybe not as a victim, maybe as part of it. The realization sickened investigators, because now they feared the violence beneath Maple Creek didn't end with Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves. It evolved, passed downward, like infection. Then came another discovery. Inside Harold Bennett's journals, investigators found repeated references to teaching the boy. The entries grew increasingly disturbing over time. Danny says Evan understands already. Boy doesn't react anymore. He watches the girls too long. Then one line stopped detectives cold. Sometimes I think he enjoys it more than we do. The possibility of a second-generation predator operating quietly somewhere beyond the investigation terrified federal authorities. Nationwide alerts expanded immediately. Updated bulletins warned law enforcement agencies Evan Reeves may be traveling with Daniel Reeves and should be considered extremely dangerous. But nobody truly knew what Evan looked like anymore. The last official photograph showed him at 17. 16 years had passed since then. He could be anywhere, using any name. Watching coverage of the case unfold while investigators dug through graves connected to his grandfather. Then the Ash Hollow raid began. Federal vehicles rolled into the Kentucky countryside beneath heavy fog just after dawn. Harold Bennett's property sat miles beyond town down isolated dirt roads surrounded by dense woods and abandoned farmland. Locals described the place as an old hunting cabin rarely occupied. Neighbors remembered strange trucks arriving late at night over the years. Nobody asked questions. Nobody wanted trouble. Tactical teams approached the property cautiously expecting armed resistance. Instead, they found silence. The cabin stood empty. Dust-covered furniture. Cold fireplace. No electricity. But investigators noticed tire tracks fresh enough to cut through morning dew leading behind the cabin toward the woods. Then agents discovered the storm cellar. Concrete doors hidden beneath overgrown brush. Locked from outside. The hinges groaned when tactical teams forced them open. Darkness breathed upward from underground. And once again, the smell hit first. Bleach, rot, damp earth. The same smell investigators encountered beneath Harold Bennett's garage. Flashlights swept across narrow stairs descending deep underground, while armed agents moved carefully downward. Unlike the Maple Creek chambers, this structure looked unfinished. Rough concrete, Exposed pipes, temporary wiring, but it served the same purpose. Cells, 3 of them, one still locked. Inside, investigators found blankets, food containers, restraints, and a woman alive. Barely alive, she recoiled screaming from the lights when agents opened the door, malnourished, dehydrated, bruises covering her wrists and neck. Doctors later estimated she had been held underground for at least 3 months. Her name was Brianna Cole, 21 years old, missing from Missouri since February. According to Brianna's fragmented statement given from a hospital bed hours later, 2 men controlled the underground cabin, an older man with gray hair, and another younger man she knew only as E. Investigators showed her photographs carefully. She identified Daniel Reeves immediately, then stared at Evan Reeves' teenage photo for nearly 30 seconds before whispering, "That's him. Older now, but that's him." The task force officially confirmed the unthinkable. Evan Reeves was alive and actively participating in the crimes. But Brianna's testimony grew even more horrifying from there. According to her, Daniel Reeves appeared weak and increasingly unstable during recent weeks. He coughed constantly, sometimes forgot things, sometimes argued violently with Evan underground late at night. The younger man controlled everything now: food, locks, punishments. Brianna described Evan as colder than Daniel somehow, detached, quiet. He rarely yelled, rarely showed anger. According to her, that made him worse. He acts normal afterward, she whispered to investigators, like nothing happened. Then she revealed something else. There were other locations, other underground rooms, other girls. Some moved repeatedly between properties. Some never returned after being taken away. Brianna remembered hearing Evan discuss the old farm with Daniel days before the motel sighting in Tennessee. Investigators immediately searched Harold Bennett's records again and found it. Property purchased under another fake company in southern Ohio. Remote farmland, abandoned since 2004 officially. The task force prepared another raid immediately, but before agents could move, Daniel Reeves finally surfaced. At 11:18 p.m., emergency dispatchers received a call from a payphone outside a truck stop near Cincinnati. Weak male voice, barely audible, the caller identified himself as Daniel Reeves. Then he said something investigators would never forget. "You need to find Evan before he starts doing this alone." Gunshot, call disconnected, and somewhere out there in the darkness beyond the highways and forests, Evan Reeves vanished completely. The payphone stood beneath a flickering truck stoplight 20 miles outside Cincinnati. Rainwater dripped from the receiver when state police arrived. Daniel Reeves was gone. No body, no blood, only the phone still swinging slowly in the wind after the gunshot investigators heard through the call. The surrounding parking lot looked almost empty except for long-haul trucks idling beneath sodium lights, while exhausted drivers watched officers flood the area with weapons drawn. Security footage revealed Daniel Reeves staggering toward the payphone minutes earlier, wearing a dark coat, soaked with blood around the abdomen. Then another figure appeared from the shadows behind him. Tall, thin, baseball cap pulled low. The younger man approached Daniel just before the call disconnected. The footage contained no audio, but investigators watching frame by frame later noticed something terrifying. Daniel Reeves looked afraid, not angry, not controlling the situation. Afraid. The younger figure remained beside the payphone only seconds after the gunshot sound echoed through the receiver. Then he calmly walked away toward a dark pickup truck before disappearing into the highway night. Federal analysts enhanced the grainy footage repeatedly. No license plate visible. No clear facial image. But Detective Ray Walker recognized something immediately. The younger man never once looked around nervously. No panic. No urgency. Just controlled movement. Like someone completely comfortable living inside violence. Like someone raised around it. The task force officially concluded what many investigators already feared. Evan Reeves had likely killed his own grandfather, and now he was alone. The realization transformed the investigation into a national emergency. because Daniel Reeves may have been old, sick, unstable. But Evan Reeves represented something far more dangerous. Young, mobile, experienced, invisible, raised inside underground prisons and murder scenes since childhood. Nobody truly knew how many crimes he participated indirectly. Nobody knew how many victims he helped transport, restrain, bury, or watch die. The journals recovered from Harold Bennett's attic painted a horrifying picture of gradual corruption stretching back years. Boy watched quietly tonight. Danny says he learns fast. He doesn't ask questions anymore. One entry dated 2011 disturbed profilers more than any other. Sometimes Evan smiles afterward. Behavioral analysts reviewing the case warned federal agencies nationwide that Evan Reeves likely lacked normal emotional development entirely. He spent formative years surrounded by predatory violence, secrecy, captivity, and murder. According to profilers, Evan may not perceive victims as fully human anymore. He perceived them as objects, experiments, possessions, and now he was free somewhere beyond the widening chaos surrounding Maple Creek. Meanwhile, the Ohio property raid moved forward anyway. Federal agents surrounded the abandoned farm before dawn under freezing rain. Helicopters circled overhead while tactical teams advanced through dead cornfields toward a collapsing white farmhouse rotting beside rusted silos. No lights, no movement, but fresh tire tracks cut through the mud, leading toward a large barn behind the house. Agents breached the barn first. Inside, they found livestock cages, medical equipment, generators, and another underground entrance hidden beneath hay bales. The entire task force felt the same dread immediately. Another one, another underground prison, another hidden world existing beneath ordinary America for decades while nobody noticed. The tunnel descending beneath the barn extended deeper than any previous site investigators uncovered. Reinforced concrete walls lined with electrical wiring stretched underground almost 100 yards before opening into a series of chambers. Then agents heard crying, very faint, somewhere ahead. Tactical teams moved faster. At the end of the corridor, they discovered 2 locked cells. Inside, the first sat a teenage girl alive but severely malnourished, 16 years old, missing from Indianapolis only 3 weeks earlier. She curled against the wall, shielding her eyes from flashlight beams while repeating one sentence over and over. He said not to scream. The second cell stood empty, still warm, blankets disturbed recently. Whoever occupied it had been removed hours earlier at most. Then investigators found the photographs hanging along the corridor walls. Polaroids, dozens, victims, some alive, some restrained, some appearing unconscious. And in several images, investigators finally saw Evan Reeves clearly for the first time as an adult, mid-30s now, thin face, dark eyes, emotionless expression, standing beside victims while wearing surgical gloves. The images spread rapidly through law enforcement databases nationwide within hours, and then the agents found Daniel Reeves, buried shallow behind the barn beneath freshly turned earth. Single gunshot wound to the head. No weapon recovered. Forensic estimates placed time of death within 12 hours of the truck stop call. Detective Walker stared at the body silently while rain soaked the excavation site. Daniel Reeves spent decades helping build a hidden empire of abduction, torture, and murder stretching across multiple states. Yet somehow his death still felt unsettling. Because even to the very end, Daniel sounded terrified of Evan. Terrified enough to call police himself. Terrified enough to beg investigators to stop the man he helped create. Then the surviving teenager from the underground cell gave investigators another crucial piece of information. According to her statement, Evan talked constantly while moving between properties. Sometimes he spoke to victims for hours about the old days underground and how Harold taught everything wrong. Wrong. The word disturbed profilers immediately. Because Evan didn't view the crimes as evil. He viewed previous killers as inefficient. According to Girl, Evan repeatedly described Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves as weak men who made mistakes because they grew emotional around victims. He said people disappear easier now, she whispered during her interview. He said nobody notices lonely girls anymore. The FBI publicly released Evan Reeves' photograph later that evening. The response became immediate chaos. Hundreds of tips flooded hotlines nationwide. Possible sightings in truck stops, bus terminals, motels, campgrounds. Some credible, most useless. But one detail appeared repeatedly in separate reports. Evan traveled with women who looked frightened. Young women, always moving, always isolated. Then investigators uncovered something even worse inside the underground Ohio facility. Storage Room 3 contained detailed maps marked with symbols and coded notes spanning at least 7 states. Analysts realized quickly the markings corresponded not to burial sites, but surveillance zones, college campuses, bus stations, homeless shelters, truck stops, places where vulnerable people moved invisibly through society every day. Evan Reeves wasn't hiding randomly. He was hunting systematically. And according to recovered notes, he had been doing for years. Then came the tape. One final videotape, recovered from beneath Harold Bennett's orchard, had remained too damaged for restoration until now. FBI technicians finally extracted enough audio and visual data to review portions safely. The footage opened inside one of the underground rooms sometime around 2014. Harold Bennett sat beside a table drinking coffee. Across from him sat Evan Reeves. Calm, adult now. The two men spoke casually, while a crying female voice echoed faintly somewhere beyond camera range. Investigators listened carefully. Harold sounded tired, old. You have to slow down, he warned. Evan shook his head. No, you got careless because you stopped evolving. Harold laughed weakly. These girls aren't objects. Evan stared at him blankly for several seconds before answering. Yes, they are. The room inside FBI headquarters reportedly fell silent after hearing that exchange, because suddenly investigators understood something chilling. Even Harold Bennett, a serial predator responsible for unimaginable horrors, feared what Evan Reeves was becoming. Then the tape grew worse. Evan looked directly toward the camera, toward whoever recorded the footage, and smiled. Not wide, not dramatic, just enough to reveal complete absence of fear. He says people like us always get caught eventually. Evan said quietly, but he still thinks this is about hiding. Then the recording ended abruptly. The clip aired nowhere publicly, but investigators who viewed it described the same reaction afterward. Evan Reeves did not behave like a fugitive running from justice. He behaved like someone continuing a process already far bigger than one investigation. And while authorities flooded highways, searching for him, another young woman disappeared outside Louisville, Kentucky, last seen entering a dark pickup truck near a gas station off Interstate 64. Witnesses described the driver as thin, quiet, wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. The girl vanished 3 blocks from the gas station. Security cameras captured only fragments. A dark pickup truck rolling slowly beneath fluorescent lights. A young woman carrying a backpack. Then nothing. No scream. No struggle. No body. Just empty pavement beneath flickering neon signs, while interstate traffic thundered endlessly through the Kentucky night. By then, the entire country knew Evan Reeves' face. Every television station. Every news alert. Every police bulletin. But fear creates its own blindness. Truck stop employees later admitted they recognized him only after watching surveillance footage again. At the time, he looked ordinary, tired, quiet, forgettable. That was the terrifying part. Monsters survive because they rarely look monstrous. The missing girl's name was Hannah Pike, 19 years old, traveling alone toward Nashville after leaving community college unexpectedly 2 weeks earlier. Friends describe her as restless recently. Depressed, drifting, exactly the kind of vulnerable target Evan Reeves hunted carefully through bus terminals and highway corridors across the Midwest. Investigators moved immediately once Hannah disappeared. Cell tower data placed Evan's stolen pickup near the gas station 30 minutes before witnesses last saw Hannah alive. Highway cameras later tracked the truck, moving eastbound toward rural Kentucky backroads where forests stretched for miles without cameras or traffic. The search became massive. State police, federal marshals, FBI tactical teams, helicopters sweeping tree lines with thermal imaging through freezing rain. But deep down, many investigators feared they were already too late, because every hour mattered with predators like Evan Reeves. And unlike Harold Bennett or Daniel Reeves, Evan did not seem interested in staying hidden anymore. He was evolving. That word kept appearing in Harold's journals repeatedly. Evolving, changing methods, improving systems, eliminating mistakes. Behavioral analysts studying Evan's psychology reached disturbing conclusions quickly. Unlike previous generations of killers surrounding him, Evan possessed no emotional attachment to Maple Creek, no nostalgia, no need for routine. He moved constantly, adapted constantly. Technology fascinated him. Investigators discovered encrypted online accounts connected to surveillance forums, police scanner networks, and missing person databases. Evan Reeves studied investigations obsessively. He learned from every mistake Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves made. And according to recovered journal entries, he blamed them for becoming careless because they wanted control more than invisibility. Then another woman escaped. Barely. At 2:11 a.m., a terrified woman stumbled barefoot into a diner outside Knoxville, Tennessee. Bruised wrists, duct tape residue around her ankles, severe dehydration. Witnesses said she could barely speak from panic when employees locked the doors behind her. Her name was Tara Wells, 24 years old, missing for 4 days. According to Tara's statement, Evan held her inside an underground room beneath an abandoned repair garage somewhere near the Tennessee border. She escaped only because Evan left briefly after hearing police sirens nearby. Then she described something investigators had not expected. The underground room contained televisions, dozens of them, security camera feeds, police broadcasts, news coverage about the investigation itself. "He watches all of you," Tara whispered during questioning. "He smiles when reporters say his name." The statement changed the manhunt immediately, because investigators realized Evan Reeves wasn't simply hiding from authorities. He was studying them in real time, watching movements, watching press conferences, watching search patterns. And if Tara's account proved accurate, then Evan likely abandoned locations moments before tactical teams arrived repeatedly because he monitored the investigation constantly. Then Tara revealed something worse. There was another girl still underground when she escaped. Young, blonde hair, maybe 16, weak from starvation. Tara begged investigators to hurry before Evan returned. The race began instantly. Using fragments from Tara's memory, FBI geographic profilers narrowed possible locations to industrial corridors near the Tennessee-Kentucky border. Investigators cross-referenced abandoned garages, warehouses, and repair shops connected historically to shell companies linked indirectly to Harold Bennett. One location surfaced repeatedly: an old trucking repair facility outside Corbin, Kentucky, closed officially since 2011, owned through layered fake corporations, eventually tracing back toward Harold Bennett's financial network. Federal agents moved before sunrise. The facility sat isolated beside dead rail lines swallowed by weeds and rust. Massive garage bays loomed against gray skies while tactical teams surrounded the perimeter silently. Everything looked abandoned. Too abandoned. Detective Ray Walker felt the same instinct immediately he experienced entering Harold Bennett's house weeks earlier. The silence felt wrong. Breach teams entered through two sides simultaneously. Dust, oil stains, broken machinery. Nothing. Then agents discovered power running beneath the building. Fresh electrical, wiring hidden behind old compressor units. And finally, another concealed door. Steel, reinforced, locked electronically, this time instead of chains and padlocks. Evan was adapting. The underground complex beneath the garage looked cleaner than previous sites. More modern. Surveillance monitors lined concrete walls while computer equipment hummed beside generators. Maps covered one room entirely. Missing person posters. Highway routes. Police frequencies handwritten carefully into notebooks. This wasn't only a prison anymore. It was a command center. Then agents found the girl. Alive. Barely conscious. Chained inside a narrow underground cell. 16-year-old Megan Holloway disappeared from Indiana 6 days earlier while walking home from work. She weighed barely 90 pounds when paramedics carried her out through the freezing rain toward waiting ambulances. But Evan Reeves was gone. Again. And this time he left something behind intentionally. A videotape sitting alone atop a metal desk. Labeled, "For Detective Walker." The room inside FBI headquarters remained completely silent when analysts finally played the recording. Evan Reeves sat facing the camera directly. Calm. Expressionless. No mask. No distortion. He looked younger than investigators expected. Thin face. Hollow eyes. Quiet voice almost unnervingly soft. "You think this ends with me," he began. Then he smiled faintly. "It doesn't." Behind him, investigators noticed concrete walls identical to the underground cells discovered across multiple states. Somewhere nearby, water dripped rhythmically through darkness. Evan leaned closer toward the camera. "My grandfather thought fear kept people silent. Harold thought hiding bodies solved everything. They were old, weak, emotional." He paused. "But they taught me one important thing." Another faint smile. "Nobody notices the missing until it becomes personal." Detective Walker watched the footage without blinking while agents around him sat frozen. Because Evan wasn't ranting, wasn't unstable. He sounded focused, controlled, methodical. Then the recording became even darker. "You know what I learned watching those girls underground?" Evan asked quietly. "Most people disappear long before anyone reports them missing." Images flashed suddenly across the screen. Photographs. Women. Teenagers. Some investigators recognized faces connected to open missing person cases nationwide. Others nobody recognized at all. The implication hit like ice water. There were more victims still undiscovered. Many more. Then Evan looked directly into the lens again. "You're digging up graves from 30 years ago while new girls vanish every week. You can't stop something society barely notices." The screen cut briefly to black. Then one final image appeared. A photograph of Hannah Pike. Alive. Terrified. Time-stamped only hours earlier. The room erupted instantly. Analysts scrambled tracing metadata, while tactical coordinators flooded surrounding states with emergency alerts. Hannah was still alive. For now. Then the tape ended with Evan whispering one final sentence. "Find me before she becomes another cold case." And somewhere beyond the highways, forests, abandoned buildings, and endless American backroads, Evan Reeves kept moving through the darkness with Hannah Pike still breathing beside him. The photograph of Hannah Pike stayed frozen on screens across FBI headquarters long after the videotape ended. Young, terrified, alive. For investigators who spent weeks excavating graves and identifying skeletons, the image carried unbearable urgency. Hannah was no longer another name buried inside databases or printed across missing person flyers. She was breathing somewhere underground while Evan Reeves watched the entire country search for him. And everyone inside the task force understood one brutal truth. Time was running out. Detective Ray Walker barely slept anymore. Coffee, cigarettes, cold interrogation rooms, endless maps pinned across temporary command walls. The Bennett Reeves investigation had already expanded into one of the largest multi-state homicide cases in modern history. Graves uncovered in 4 states. More than 20 confirmed victims. Dozens still unidentified. And now a new predator moved through the chaos with terrifying intelligence. Evan Reeves adapted faster than law enforcement could predict. He changed vehicles constantly, abandoned phones quickly, used stolen identities, avoided surveillance corridors. Most disturbing of all, he appeared to understand investigative procedure almost professionally. Profilers believed years spent around Daniel Reeves exposed him to police methodology from childhood. Evan knew how search grids operated. He knew how media cycles influenced public pressure. He knew exactly how long authorities could sustain large-scale manhunts before exhaustion and bureaucracy slowed everything down. But there was something else, too. Something darker. Evan wanted investigators chasing him. The videotape proved that. The taunting, the direct eye contact, the deliberate inclusion of Hannah Pike still alive. He wasn't only hiding. He was performing. Then another package arrived. At 4:26 a.m., a local television station in Louisville, received an unmarked envelope delivered by overnight courier. Inside sat a flash drive and a handwritten note. She still has 3 days. Federal agents intercepted the package within minutes. The flash drive contained another video. This time, Hannah Pike appeared sitting inside a dim underground room wrapped in a blanket. Her face looked pale and exhausted, but largely unharmed physically. Someone behind the camera asked her questions calmly. "What's your name?" "Hannah." "How old are you?" 19. "Do you think anyone will find you?" Long silence. Then Hannah began crying softly. The camera moved closer. Too close. Investigators watching the footage reportedly felt physically sick because Evan never appeared directly on screen. Only his breathing, his voice, controlled, patient, almost gentle. "You know the strange thing?" he asked her quietly. "Every girl before you thought somebody was coming too." The recording cut immediately afterward. No location clues. No timestamps. Nothing obvious. But FBI audio analysts detected something hidden beneath the conversation. Trains. Distant metallic impacts repeating irregularly. And water. Flowing water. The geographic profiling unit narrowed possibilities rapidly. Industrial rail corridors near river systems. Abandoned infrastructure. Underground drainage access. The search radius still covered hundreds of square miles, but investigators finally had movement. Then another woman vanished. Cincinnati. 22 years old. Last seen leaving a homeless outreach center. Security footage captured a dark pickup truck circling the block twice before she disappeared. Public panic intensified instantly. Parents stopped letting teenagers travel alone. Universities across several states issued emergency safety advisories. Gas stations posted Evan Reeves' photograph beside cash registers. Truck drivers formed online groups sharing highway sightings. True crime forums exploded with theories ranging from organized trafficking networks to underground cult activity. And somewhere inside the hysteria, Evan kept hunting, because that was the most horrifying part. Despite national attention, despite helicopters, despite armed federal task forces, girls still disappeared. Then Detective Walker received a phone call. Private number. Distorted silence for several seconds. Then breathing. Walker immediately recognized the voice. "Evan Reeves." "You look tired," Evan said calmly. The entire command center froze while technicians scrambled tracing the call. "What do you want?" Walker asked. Another pause. "You're asking the wrong questions." Investigators signaled desperately for Walker to keep him talking longer. "You murdered your own grandfather," Walker said carefully. Evan laughed softly. He built cages because he was scared of losing control. Harold buried bodies because he was scared of being remembered. Weak men always confuse fear with power. The trace stalled repeatedly. Burner rerouting. Professional countermeasures. Then Evan said something that chilled everyone listening. "You've been inside 6 underground sites already. You still haven't found the worst one." The room went dead silent. Walker felt it immediately. Evan wasn't bluffing. "There are more girls there," Evan continued quietly. "Some alive, some not." "Where?" "You'll figure out eventually. The question is whether they survive long enough." The line crackled. Walker tried keeping him engaged. "Why call me?" Another long silence. Then the answer came almost like a whisper. "Because you actually looked at them." Walker frowned. "What?" The others saw evidence. Evan said, "You saw people." For the first time during the investigation, Detective Walker felt something almost worse than fear. Recognition. Like Evan Reeves had been studying him personally. Then the voice hardened instantly again. "You should hurry." Call disconnected. Technicians traced the signal only broadly. Southern Ohio, near old industrial river zones. The task force mobilized immediately. Meanwhile, forensic analysts reviewing Harold Bennett's journals uncovered repeated references to a location called the Hollow. At first, investigators assumed the term referred symbolically to underground chambers or burial sites. Then a retired surveyor contacted the FBI after seeing media coverage. He remembered an abandoned Cold War drainage facility nicknamed Hollow Station outside Portsmouth. Ohio, decades earlier. Massive underground flood tunnels connected to old rail systems beneath industrial land near the river. Mostly forgotten now. Mostly sealed. Mostly, the moment aerial maps appeared on screen, investigators felt the atmosphere inside command headquarters change completely. Rail lines, water access, industrial isolation, enough underground space to hide almost anything. The raid began that same night. Federal vehicles rolled silently through freezing rain, while helicopters cut across black skies overhead. Hollow stations sat buried beneath collapsing industrial ruins beside the Ohio River, where factories died decades earlier. Rusted pipelines stretched across empty lots, while flood tunnels disappeared underground beneath reinforced concrete. The entrance stood hidden behind old maintenance structures overgrown by weeds. Unlocked, fresh tire tracks nearby. Evan wanted them entering. Everyone knew it, but nobody had a choice. Tactical teams descended first. The tunnel system beneath Hollow Station dwarfed every previous underground site investigators discovered. Concrete corridors stretched endlessly beneath dripping pipes and rusted rail tracks, while cold river water echoed somewhere beyond the darkness. Then agents found electricity, working generators, surveillance cameras, recent food supplies, signs of habitation everywhere. And finally, voices, crying, very faint. Agents followed the sound deeper underground until the tunnel opened into a massive hidden chamber divided by steel fencing and concrete walls. Cells, at least 8 of them, some empty, some not. Inside 3 cells, investigators discovered women alive, terrified, weak, barely able to stand. One appeared no older than 15. Another had been missing from Illinois since the previous summer. A third immediately began screaming the moment lights hit the corridor. He said you wouldn't come. Paramedics rushed forward while tactical teams continued clearing the underground maze, searching desperately for Hannah Pike and Evan Reeves. Then one agent found a room. Not a prison cell. A bedroom. Clean. Organized. Books stacked carefully beside a mattress. Computer monitors displaying news coverage of the investigation nonstop. Maps covering every wall. And at the center, photographs of victims. Hundreds of them, connected by strings and handwritten notes like some twisted archive documenting decades of suffering. But one photograph sat alone above the others. Detective Ray Walker, recent, taken without his knowledge. And beneath it, written in black marker across the concrete wall, you were always the closest. Then somewhere deep beneath Hollow Station, a steel door slammed shut. The sound of the steel door slamming underground echoed through Hollow Station like a gunshot. Then the lights went out. Complete darkness swallowed the tunnel system instantly, while agents shouted over each other through static-filled radios. Emergency flashlights snapped on across dripping concrete corridors as tactical teams scrambled to regroup inside the underground maze. Detective Ray Walker drew his weapon instinctively, while red emergency lighting flickered weakly somewhere deeper in the station. Water dripped steadily through rusted pipes overhead. The entire structure groaned beneath the pressure of the river above them. Then came the voice. Evan Reeves, broadcast through hidden speakers buried inside the tunnel walls. Calm, almost conversational. You shouldn't have come this far. Agents froze momentarily, trying to locate the sound source. You built this place? Walker shouted into darkness. Soft laughter echoed through the speakers. No, men like Harold always thought underground meant invisible. I just improved what they started. Another steel door slammed somewhere nearby. One of the rescued girls began screaming from a medical triage corridor, while paramedics rushed her toward the surface entrance. The underground complex suddenly felt alive around them, controlled remotely, designed carefully. Like Evan anticipated every tactical movement long before agents arrived. Then alarms started blaring. Flood alarms. A maintenance warning system investigators hadn't noticed earlier suddenly activated throughout Hollow Station. Red lights pulsed across the walls while distorted automated messages repeated through static. Water level critical. Evacuation advised. The realization hit the tactical commander instantly. Evan was flooding the tunnels. Panic spread fast underground. Agents split between evacuating surviving victims and continuing pursuit deeper into Hollow Station before water sealed entire sections permanently. Walker ignored repeated orders to retreat because somewhere inside the tunnels Hannah Pike was still alive. He could feel it. Then Walker discovered the camera room. Hidden behind reinforced steel doors near the center of the underground facility sat a narrow controlled chamber lined floor to ceiling with surveillance monitors. Some displayed live police movements above ground. Others showed underground corridors from different angles. And one monitor showed Hannah Pike, alive, curled against a wall inside a concrete room somewhere deeper beneath the station. Walker immediately copied the feed location markers while technicians tried tracing the signal route. But Evan interrupted again through the speakers. She lasted longer than most. Walker stared at the monitor. "What do you want?" Silence. Then breathing through the speakers. "You still think this is about wanting something?" Evan answered quietly. "That's why you're losing." The flood alarms grew louder. Water already surged through lower tunnel sections, rising around agents' boots while emergency lights reflected violently off concrete walls. The underground complex transformed into chaos. Victims evacuated upward through stairwells. Tactical teams forced sealed doors. Divers prepared rescue equipment near lower access points. And still, Evan remained invisible. Then another monitor activated suddenly, this time showing Detective Walker himself from above. Live footage. Someone was watching him in real time. A sentence appeared across the screen seconds later. "She's below you." Walker sprinted instantly. 2 agents followed him through narrow maintenance corridors, descending deeper beneath Hollow Station, while water rushed louder somewhere ahead. The station's original blueprints made little sense anymore. Evan modified sections extensively. Hidden doors, false walls, secondary tunnels branching beneath older infrastructure. The deeper Walker moved, the colder the air became. Then he heard crying. Faint. Female. Ahead. The corridor opened into another underground chamber partially flooded with dark river water. Rusted chains hung from walls beside medical carts and surveillance equipment. Several cells stood empty. One occupied. Hannah Pike, alive, barely conscious. Walker rushed toward the cell, while agents covered surrounding corridors. Hannah recoiled weakly against a wall before recognizing the FBI markings on his vest. "He's still here," she whispered desperately. "He said you'd come alone." Walker forced the lock open just as emergency lights failed completely again. Darkness, then movement somewhere behind them. One agent shouted. Gunfire exploded through the tunnel. Muzzle flashes illuminated concrete walls in violent bursts, while water splashed across the chamber floor. Walker shoved Hannah behind cover instinctively as bullets struck steel beside them. Then silence returned instantly. Too fast. One agent lay wounded near the entrance, while the second swore he saw Evan disappear through another maintenance tunnel moments after firing. The pursuit resumed immediately. Walker left evacuation teams with Hannah and chased the fleeing figure deeper underground alongside remaining tactical officers. Water now surged knee-high through parts of Hollow Station, while alarms screamed continuously overhead. Then the tunnels changed again. Older sections, brick instead of concrete, original Cold War infrastructure untouched for decades, and scattered across the walls. Photographs, hundreds of them, victims, children, teenagers, women, some identified already through the investigation, others completely unknown. A timeline of suffering stretching across generations. Harold Bennett, Daniel Reeves, and now Evan Reeves. 3 generations connected through obsession, captivity, and violence hidden beneath ordinary American life. Then Walker saw something that stopped him cold. One photograph showed himself as a young patrol officer nearly 15 years earlier, standing outside a grocery store in Maple Creek. Another showed him attending his daughter's soccer game. Another showed his house. The realization turned his blood cold instantly. Evan Reeves had been watching him long before the investigation began, long before Kelly Monroe's DNA reopened the case. Then another sentence appeared painted across the brick wall ahead. You were always part of this. Walker barely had time to process the words before another gunshot echoed through the tunnel. Agents scattered for cover. This time they saw Evan clearly. Thin figure, dark clothing soaked from floodwater, moving quickly through the maze with terrifying familiarity. Walker pursued immediately while tactical teams followed behind. The chase tore through collapsing underground corridors as water levels continued rising rapidly around them. Rusted pipes burst overhead. Concrete cracked beneath pressure from decades-old infrastructure. Then Evan stopped running. At the end of a narrow tunnel partially submerged beneath black water, he turned calmly toward Walker. For the first time during the entire investigation, they stood face to face. Evan looked younger than expected, almost ordinary. That was the disturbing part. No wild eyes, no rage, no visible panic. Just exhaustion mixed with something colder. Disappointment. Walker raised his weapon carefully. It's over. Evan stared at him for several seconds before speaking. You still believe people like me are rare. Water surged louder around them. Walker advanced slowly. You murdered children. Evan tilted his head slightly. No, Harold murdered children. Daniel followed because he was weak. I learned from both of them. Another step backward into rising floodwater. But this started long before us. Walker frowned. What does that mean? For the first time, emotion flickered briefly across Evan's face. Not guilt, not fear. Something closer to anger. You excavated graves, but never asked why nobody noticed girls disappearing for decades. Runaways, foster kids, addicts, homeless women. Society buried them before we ever did. The words echoed through the flooding tunnel, while distant structural groans vibrated overhead. Walker kept his weapon steady. You're blaming society for what you did? No, Evan answered quietly. I'm explaining why it was easy. Then he smiled faintly and pressed something hidden in his hand. The explosion detonated somewhere deeper inside Hollow Station instantly. The tunnel convulsed violently. Concrete split. Water roared forward through collapsing corridors while emergency lights burst overhead. Tactical teams screamed evacuation orders through radios as entire tunnel sections began caving inward beneath river pressure. Walker lunged forward to the chaos, reaching for Evan, just as another collapse tore the floor apart between them. For one split second their hands nearly touched. Then black water swallowed Evan Reeves into collapsing darkness beneath Hollow Station. Gone. Just like that. The current dragged debris, concrete, and floodwater violently through the tunnels, while Walker barely escaped upward alongside surviving agents before entire underground sections collapsed permanently beneath the river. By dawn, Hollow Station was underwater, completely inaccessible. Search divers found no body, no remains, nothing, only endless black water moving beneath collapsed concrete somewhere far below the Ohio River. And despite rescuing Hannah Pike, despite saving 4 surviving victims, despite uncovering one of the largest hidden prison systems in modern criminal history, the investigation ended with the most terrifying possibility still unresolved. Evan Reeves might still be alive. 3 months after Hollow Station collapsed beneath the Ohio River, divers were still recovering evidence from the flooded tunnel systems. Not bodies, fragments, rusted restraints, waterlogged photographs, bones carried through underground currents like forgotten debris from another world. The official investigation stretched across the 7 states by then. 43 confirmed victims connected directly to Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves. 12 additional unidentified remain still undergoing forensic analysis. Thousands of missing person cases reopened nationwide. Entire task forces built around untangling decades of disappearances hidden beneath false identities, corrupted reports, and silent communities. But one question refused to die. Where was Evan Reeves? No body surfaced after the Hollow Station collapse. No confirmed sighting. Nothing. And that silence frightened investigators more than any headline screaming across national television. Because predators like Evan rarely vanish completely. They waited. News coverage shifted toward elections, celebrity scandals, hurricanes, wars overseas. True crime documentaries flooded streaming platforms within weeks. Maple Creek became another grim symbol Americans consumed late at night from couches and phone screens before moving on with ordinary life. But not everyone moved on, especially not Detective Ray Walker. The investigation destroyed him quietly. Sleep became impossible. Every close I brought underground corridors, flooding black beneath emergency lights. Every dripping faucet reminded him of Hollow Station, collapsing while Evan disappeared beneath the water. Walker stopped attending family dinners regularly. His wife barely recognized the exhausted man, sitting silently at kitchen tables, staring into untouched coffee long after midnight. Because deep down, Walker knew something the public did not. Evan Reeves planned for Hollow Station to collapse. The explosives, the flood systems, the carefully timed blackout. Everything about the final confrontation felt rehearsed, controlled, like an exit strategy. And the more Walker studied evidence recovered from the tunnels, the worse that feeling became. Then another girl vanished. Kansas City, 20 years old, last seen leaving a bus terminal after midnight. At first, the disappearance looked ordinary compared to thousands of missing adult cases reported yearly. No signs of struggle, no witnesses, no immediate evidence connecting her to the Bennett Reeves investigation. Until detectives reviewed nearby traffic footage. Dark pickup truck, older model, missing rear license plate. The same vehicle type connected repeatedly to Evan Reeves' sightings before Hollow Station. Walker saw the footage at 2:13 a.m. and immediately felt the blood drain from his face. Then came the second disappearance. Iowa, 17-year-old runaway, gone from a truck stop beside Interstate 80. Witnesses described a thin, quiet man wearing a baseball cap, speaking calmly with her near vending machine shortly before she vanished. The FBI refused public confirmation initially. Privately, nobody doubted it anymore. Evan survived. The nightmare wasn't over. A new national task force formed almost immediately under complete media secrecy. Investigators feared public panic if Evan Reeves resurfaced officially after millions believed he died beneath Hollow Station. Walker joined despite pressure from supervisors to step away permanently. He couldn't. Too many girls already buried. Too many underground rooms still haunting his memory. Then another breakthrough emerged from the old evidence. Forensic analysts restoring hard drives recovered from Hollow Station uncovered encrypted files hidden beneath surveillance archives. At first, investigators assumed the drives contained victim records or financial transactions. Instead, they found communication logs. Years of them. Messages exchanged through anonymous servers between Evan Reeves and unknown individuals across multiple states. The contents chilled federal investigators instantly, because some messages weren't about hiding crimes. They were about learning, questions about restraints, surveillance, police tactics, disposal methods, victim psychology, and Evan answered them calmly, methodically, like a teacher. The realization spread through FBI headquarters slowly but brutally. Evan Reeves may not have been working alone anymore. He may have been building something. Then investigators uncovered usernames appearing repeatedly across the encrypted exchanges. Some accounts vanished years earlier. Others remained active even after Hollow Station collapsed. One message sent only 8 days before the Kansas City disappearance froze everyone reviewing the files. Evolution requires continuation. Below it, Evan replied, then continue. The implications became unbearable. For decades, Harold Bennett and Daniel Reeves operated like isolated predators hidden underground. But Evan grew up during the digital age. Forums, encrypted servers, anonymous communities. The task force suddenly feared Evan transformed personal violence into ideology shared quietly online among unstable strangers he mentored anonymously. The nightmare wasn't contained anymore. It was spreading. Then Walker received another package. No return address. Delivered directly to his home. His wife discovered it first sitting on the porch before dawn. Inside rested a small cassette tape and one photograph. Walker's daughter leaving college campus 2 days earlier. Taken from distance. The tape contained only breathing for several seconds before Evan finally spoke. You still don't understand. Walker's hands reportedly shook listening to the recording later inside FBI headquarters. You think this ends when you catch one man, Evan whispered. But men like Harold existed long before me. They'll exist after me too. The breathing returned briefly. Then one final sentence. You should ask yourself why. No threats, no demands. That somehow made it worse. Because Evan no longer sounded like a fugitive trying to survive. He sounded ideological, convinced, certain. Security around Walker's family increased immediately, while federal cybercrime units tracked encrypted activity connected to Evan's recovered networks. Several users vanished offline completely once investigators began monitoring the forums. Others grew more active. One account posted disturbing photographs from abandoned locations alongside cryptic phrases investigators recognized from Harold Bennett's journals. People disappear easier underground. Another message simply read, Maple Creek was only the beginning. Then came the body.